The darkness of space rippled like water as something massive pushed through reality itself. First came the smell, a mix of metal and something alive that made the sensor operators on Earth's defense stations gag. Then came the ship. The Bloodfang was not built, it was grown. Its hull pulsed with veins of bioluminescent fluid, and its surface moved like breathing skin. Spines jutted from its back like the fins of some deep-sea nightmare, each one longer than a city block. The ship's front end opened and closed like a mouth, revealing rows of what looked like teeth but were actually docking bays. Admiral Lisa Brooks stood in the command center of Earth Defense Station Alpha, watching her screens with growing horror. Her best weapons had fired everything they had at the alien vessel. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids barely left marks on its surface. Nuclear missiles exploded against its hull like firecrackers against a mountain. "Ma'am, we're getting a transmission," said Lieutenant Don Cooper, his voice shaking. "Put it through." The main screen flickered and showed something that made several officers step backward. The creature was 8 feet tall and covered in black chitinous armor that looked like it had been polished to a mirror shine. Its head was elongated with 4 eyes that glowed red in the darkness. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding stones. "I am Huntmaster Zarthok of the Kethver. We have come for the one called Jack Morrison. Surrender him to us, and your world will be spared." Admiral Brooks found her voice. "Who are you? What do you want with Morrison?" "We are hunters. We have stalked prey across 1,000 worlds. We have brought back the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Jack Morrison's name has reached the ears of those who collect such specimens. They pay well for creatures of his caliber." The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Everyone knew about Jack Morrison, the man who had single-handedly ended the rebellion on Titan Colony, the one who had exposed the corruption in the Centauri Trade Federation and brought down 3 senators. He was a legend, but he was also just one man. "Get me Morrison," Admiral Brooks ordered on Luna Station. Jack Morrison sat in his workshop, surrounded by the organized chaos of a man who fixed things for a living. Tools hung from magnetic strips on the walls, half-finished projects covered every surface. The air smelled of metal shavings and lubricant. He was working on an old combat suit, the kind Marines had worn during the Outer Rim Wars. The armor was scratched and dented, but Jack's hands moved over it with practiced ease. He had been a Marine once before he became something else entirely. "Jack, you need to see this," said Dr. Amy Carter, bursting through the workshop door. She was small and energetic, with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been Jack's partner for 3 years, ever since they had met during the Centauri investigation. "What is it, Amy?" "There's a ship, a big one. It's heading for Luna Station, and Earth Defense says it's full of hunters. They're coming for you." Jack looked up from his work. His face was weathered with scars that told stories of a dozen fights. His eyes were calm, the kind of calm that came from seeing too much and surviving it all. "Hunters? The Kethver. They're supposed to be the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. They've never failed to bring back their target." Jack set down his tools and walked to the window. Luna Station orbited Earth's moon, giving him a perfect view of the approaching ship. The Bloodfang was huge, easily the size of a small city. As he watched, smaller vessels detached from its hull like insects leaving a hive. "How long do we have?" "Maybe an hour." Jack nodded and returned to his workbench. He picked up a wrench and continued working on the combat suit. "Jack, did you hear me? They're coming to capture you. We need to run." "Where would we go, Amy?" "A ship is faster than anything we have. And even if we could outrun them, they'd just follow us wherever we went." "So what do we do?" Jack smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "We wait for them to arrive. Then we have a conversation." Amy stared at him. "A conversation? With the galaxy's most feared hunters?" "Everyone can be talked to, Amy. You just have to know how." The boarding pods hit Luna Station's hull with sounds like thunder. Each pod was the size of a small shuttle, and they cut through the station's armor like it was paper. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the station as atmosphere leaked into space. Jack stood in the main corridor, wearing nothing but his work clothes and a slight smile. He had sent Amy to the control room with strict instructions to stay there, no matter what happened. The corridor was long and straight, with white walls and bright lights. It looked like a hospital, not a place where legends would meet. The first pod opened with a hiss of escaping gas. Smoke poured out and then came. The hunters, they moved like flowing water, each step perfectly placed. Their armor caught the light and threw it back in sharp angles. Their claws extended and retracted as they walked, making soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. They carried no weapons that Jack could see, but he knew they did not need any. Huntmaster Zarthok emerged last. He was larger than the others, with scars on his armor that spoke of countless battles. His red eyes fixed on Jack immediately. "You are Jack Morrison, I am." "You do not run, no. You do not beg, no. You do not prepare to fight, no." The Huntmaster tilted his head, studying Jack like a puzzle he could not solve. "In 300 years of hunting, no prey has ever stood still and waited for us." "Maybe. That's because you've never hunted anyone like me." "You believe you are special?" Jack shrugged. "I believe I'm curious. You've traveled a long way to get here." "The least I can do is offer you some coffee." The hunters exchanged glances. Several of them made sounds that might have been laughter or confusion. "Coffee? It's a human drink. Helps you stay awake." "I was about to make some anyway." Huntmaster Zarthok stared at Jack for a long moment. In all his years of hunting, he had seen prey react in many ways. Some ran, some fought, some tried to bargain, but none had ever invited him to share a meal. "You mock us?" "No, I'm being polite. Where I come from, when someone travels a long way to visit you, you offer them something to eat or drink. It's good manners." The Huntmaster's claws extended slightly. "We are not visitors, we are hunters. You are prey? Right now, you're guests on my station. The hunting can wait a few minutes." Jack turned and walked toward the station's common area. Behind him, the hunters stood frozen in confusion. They had protocols for resistance, for violence, for desperate escape attempts. They had no protocol for hospitality. "Huntmaster," said one of the younger hunters, "what do we do?" Zarthok watched Jack's retreating figure. The human showed no fear, no desperation. He moved like a man who had made peace with whatever was coming. It was not the behavior of prey. "We follow," the Huntmaster said finally. "And we learn what kind of creature offers coffee to its killers." As they walked through Luna Station's corridors, Jack pointed out features of human engineering, asking questions about Kethver technology in return. The hunters found themselves answering, drawn into conversation despite themselves. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's most feared hunters were not sure what they were hunting. The common area of Luna Station was not designed for 8-foot-tall alien hunters. The tables were too low, the chairs too small, and the ceiling barely cleared their heads. Huntmaster Zarthok had to duck as he entered, his armor scraping against the doorframe. Jack moved around the small kitchen area with practiced ease, filling a coffee maker with water and measuring out grounds. The hunters watched his every movement, their red eyes tracking him like predators studying prey. But Jack seemed completely relaxed, humming quietly to himself as he worked. Dr. Amy Carter stood in the doorway, her face pale. She had reluctantly agreed to help prepare refreshments, but every instinct told her to run. The hunter's presence filled the room like a physical weight. Their armor gleamed under the artificial lights, and she could hear the soft sound of their breathing through what she assumed were filters. "Amy, could you get those cups from the upper cabinet?" Jack asked, as if they were preparing for a normal visit from neighbors. "Jack, are you insane?" she whispered, moving closer to him. "These are the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. They kill people for money." "They capture people for money," Jack corrected. "There's a difference, not much of one." Jack smiled and patted her shoulder. "Trust me," Amy looked at the hunters, who were trying to figure out how to sit in human furniture. One of them, younger than the others, was examining a chair with the careful attention of someone defusing a bomb. Another had given up entirely and was standing with his back to the wall, How do you take your coffee? Jack asked the room in. The hunters looked at each other in confusion. Huntmaster Zarthok's head tilted, a gesture that somehow seemed both alien and familiar. We do not understand. Do you like it sweet? Bitter? With milk? We have never consumed this ... coffee. Well, we'll start with something basic then. Jack poured steaming black liquid into several cups, the rich aroma filling the air. This is how most humans drink it when they first try it. He carried a tray to the table, setting cups in front of each hunter. The young one who had been examining the chair finally managed to sit down, though his knees came up almost to his chest. The others remained standing. You're not from around here, Jack said, settling into his own chair with his coffee. Obviously, but I mean, you're not from this galaxy, are you? Huntmaster Zarthok picked up a cup with surprising delicacy. His claws, which Amy had assumed were permanently extended, retracted enough to allow him to grip the handle. We come from the Andromeda Spiral, the world of Kethver Prime. Long way to travel. What's it like there? Why do you wish to know? Jack shrugged. Curiosity. I've never met anyone from another galaxy before. Is it different from the Milky Way? The Huntmaster studied Jack's face, searching for signs of deception or mockery. He found only genuine interest. It is ... colder. Our sun is dying. The hunt grounds grow smaller each year. That must be hard for your people. It is why we hunt for others now. The Galactic Preserve pays well for rare specimens. The money allows us to buy food, medicine, technology to keep our world alive. Jack nodded thoughtfully. So you're not doing this because you want to, you're doing it because you have to. Several hunters shifted uncomfortably. Amy noticed that their posture had changed subtly. They no longer looked like predators ready to strike. They looked like people having a difficult conversation. The hunt is our way, said the young hunter who had finally managed to sit down. We are Kethver. We have always been hunters. I'm Vexstar, the young one continued, then stopped suddenly as if he had said too much. Nice to meet you, Vexstar. I'm Jack, and this is Amy. Jack raised his coffee cup in a small salute. What did you hunt before you started working for the Preserve? Great beasts, creatures that threatened our settlements. Sometimes rogues of our own kind who broke the codes of honor. Codes of honor? Huntmaster Zarthok spoke carefully. We do not hunt the innocent. We do not hunt children. We do not hunt those who cannot defend themselves. We hunt only those who are worthy opponents or who have brought dishonor to themselves. That sounds like a good system. It was. The Huntmaster's voice carried a weight of sadness. Before the Preserve found U.S. Amy watched in amazement as the conversation continued. Jack asked questions about Kethver culture, their history, their traditions. He shared stories of human hunters and warriors, drawing comparisons between their peoples. The hunters found themselves talking about things they had not discussed in years. We had great hunt leaders, said another hunter, older than Vexstar but younger than Zarthok. Kisara was the greatest tracker in our history. She could follow a trail across 3 star systems. What happened to her? She refused to hunt. For the Preserve? Said it went against everything we believed in. They took her children. The room fell silent. Jack set down his coffee cup with deliberate care. They're holding your families hostage. Not hostage, Huntmaster Zarthok said. Quickly, they are guests. Safe and well cared for on Preserve worlds. But you can't see them unless you do what the Preserve wants. We see them. When we complete successful hunts, we are allowed visits, and if you fail, we do not fail. Jack studied the Huntmaster's face, but if you did, the visits would stop. Amy saw Jack's expression change. The relaxed friendliness was still there, but underneath it was something harder. Something that reminded her why Jack Morrison was feared across the galaxy. Tell me about the Preserve, Jack said quietly. They collect rare beings. Sentient species with unusual abilities. They claim it is for preservation, for study. But it's not. No, it is for entertainment. Rich beings pay to see creatures fight, to see them perform, to see them ... Suffer? Vexstar looked up from his coffee. I have seen the places where they keep our quarry. They are not laboratories, they are prisons. How long have you been working for them? 40 years, Huntmaster Zarthok said, since they first came to our world. And in all that time, have you ever wanted to hunt something else? The question hung in the air like a physical thing. Amy saw the hunters exchange glances, saw the way their bodies tensed. What do you mean? Zarthok asked. I mean, if you could choose your own prey, what would you hunt? The silence stretched longer this time. Finally, Vexstar spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. The ones who make us do this, the preserve officials? All of them, the collectors, the entertainers. The ones who profit from suffering, Vexstar's claws extended slightly. They have corrupted our sacred hunt, made us into kidnappers and slavers. We think about it, Kasara admitted. When we lie awake at night, we think about tracking Director Malfin to his private world. About showing him what it feels like to be hunted. But you can't. Our families, Huntmaster Zarthok said simply. Jack nodded slowly. I understand. You're trapped between duty to your people and duty to your beliefs. You speak as if you know this feeling. I do. I was a soldier once. I followed orders I didn't believe in because I thought it was the right thing to do. It took me a long time to learn that sometimes the right thing to do is to stop following orders. Amy watched the hunters process this. She could see them weighing Jack's words, considering possibilities they had not dared to consider before. What would you do? Vexstar asked. If you were us? Jack smiled, and this time it was not friendly at all. I'd find a way to hunt the real monsters. The hunters stared at him. Huntmaster Zarthok leaned forward, his red eyes burning with sudden intensity. You speak of rebellion. I speak of justice. There's a difference. The Preserve is too powerful. They have fleets, armies, worlds full of resources. They also have enemies, people they've wronged, species they've enslaved. And they have one weakness they don't know about. What weakness? Jack's smile grew wider. They sent the galaxy's most feared hunters to capture me, and instead, those hunters are sitting in my kitchen, drinking coffee and talking about justice? The realization hit them all at once. Amy saw it in their faces, in the way they straightened, in the sudden sharpness of their movements. You want us to work with you, Huntmaster Zarthok said. I want you to work with me. There's a difference. Against the Preserve, against everyone who profits from suffering. The hunters looked at each other, and Amy saw something she had never expected to see. She saw hope. Jack stood up from the table and walked to a wall panel. He pressed his palm against it, and the panel slid open to reveal a hidden compartment. Inside were data drives, recording devices, and communication equipment that looked far more advanced than anything Luna Station should have had. Amy, bring up the Preserve files, Jack said, pulling out a small data drive. Amy's eyes widened. You've been investigating them? For 6 months. Ever since they put a bounty on my head. Huntmaster Zarthok rose from his awkward position at the table. You knew we were coming. I knew someone was coming. The Preserve doesn't like people who ask questions about their business. They especially don't like people who have proof of their crimes. Amy activated the holographic display system. The air above the table shimmered, and suddenly they were looking at a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked dozens of locations throughout known space. These are Preserve facilities, Jack explained. Not the ones they show to. The public, the real ones. The places where they keep the beings they've collected. Vexstar leaned forward, studying the display. How did you get this information? I have friends in low places. People who work in shipping, security, communications. They see things, they talk to me. Jack manipulated the display, zooming in on one of the red dots. It showed a massive space station orbiting a dead world. This is Collection Point 7. It's supposed to be a research facility. The display changed, showing internal schematics of the station. The hunters saw rows of cells, each one designed for a different species. Some were filled with water, others with methane gas. All of them were prisons. I count over 3,000 holding cells, Kasara said quietly. That's just one facility. There are 47 others that we know about. Amy pulled up another file. Jack, show them the entertainment records. Jack's face darkened. These are harder to watch. The display changed again, showing what looked like an arena. Creatures from dozens of different worlds were forced to fight each other while beings in expensive clothes watched from protected balconies. The crowd cheered as something that looked like a cross between a Volf and a dragon tore into a creature that seemed to be made of living crystal. The preserve calls it cultural preservation, Jack said. They claim they're showing how different species behave in their natural state. But this isn't natural. These creatures are starved, drugged, and tortured until they become violent. Vexstar made a sound that was half growl, half whimper. We brought them some of these beings. I know. I have the transport records. The display shifted to show shipping manifests. Each one listed creatures by species, capture date, and destination. The hunters saw their own names on dozens of documents, along with the names of beings they had delivered to the preserve. Lot 247, Jack read from one manifest. 6 Altarian juveniles, captured by Kethver hunting pack. Delivered to entertainment. Complex 12 for gladiatorial training. We were told they were going to a research facility, Huntmaster Zarthok said, his voice barely controlled. You were lied to. They've been lying to you for 40 years. Amy brought up another file. This is the worst part. The display showed a luxurious office decorated with trophies from 100 worlds. Behind an ornate desk sat a being that looked like a cross between a spider and a snake. His skin was pale and translucent, and his 8 eyes glittered with cold intelligence. Director Malthan, Jack said. Head of the Galactic Preserve. Also the galaxy's most successful slave trader. The recording showed Malthan in conversation with someone off-screen. His voice was smooth and cultured, with an accent that spoke of wealth and education. The Kethver are useful idiots, Malthan was saying. They actually believe we're preserving culture. The truth is, their reputation makes the capture process much easier. When beings hear that Kethver hunters are coming for them, they often surrender without a fight. What about their families? Asked the unseen person. What about them? They're just more specimens. If the hunters ever become troublesome, we can always add them to the collection. The recording ended. The room was silent except for the sound of the hunter's breathing, which had become harsh and rapid. How long have you had this? Huntmaster Zarthok asked. 3 weeks. I've been trying to figure out how to get close enough to Malthan to expose him. The preserve's main facility is heavily guarded, and I'm just one person. You want us to help you get inside. I want us to help each other. You need to free your families. I need to stop the preserve. We can't do either of those things alone. Jack manipulated the display again, showing a massive structure that looked like a cross between a space station and a fortress. It was surrounded by defensive platforms and patrol ships. This is Nexus Prime, Jack said. It's where Malthan lives and works. It's also where they keep the most valuable prisoners, including your families. Vexstar studied the defensive positions. It's impossible to approach without being detected. The sensor grid covers light years in every direction. Unless you're in a ship they trust, the Bloodfang, they're expecting you to deliver me to them. What if you did, but not in the way they're expecting? Amy caught on first. You want to be captured. I want to appear to be captured. There's a difference. Huntmaster Zarthok's claws extended slightly. You would trust us with your life? I would trust you with my life. The question is, do you trust me with yours? The hunters exchanged glances. Amy could see them weighing the risks, considering the possibilities. Finally, Kasara spoke. What would we need to do? Jack smiled, and this time it was the smile of a man who had found worthy allies. First, we need to make this look real. You'll need to capture me in a way that doesn't actually capture me. Then we need to get inside Nexus Prime without them knowing I'm anything other than a prisoner. And once we're inside, then we hunt, but this time we hunt the real predators. Amy pulled up detailed schematics of Nexus Prime. I've been studying their security systems. They have weaknesses, but we'll need to exploit them from the inside. What about our families? Vexstar asked. We free them first. Then we gather evidence. Then we make sure the galaxy knows what the Preserve has been doing. And Malthan? Jack's smile became predatory. Malthan faces justice. Kethver justice. Huntmaster Zarthok stood slowly, his full height impressive even in the low-ceilinged room. You understand what you're asking. If we do this, there's no going back. The Preserve will hunt us forever. They're already hunting you? The only difference is that now you'll be hunting them back. And if we fail? Then we fail together, fighting for something that matters. The Huntmaster looked at each of his hunters in turn. Amy saw them nod, one by one, making their choice. When he turned back to Jack, his red eyes burned with determination. Very well, Jack Morrison, we will hunt together. Good. Jack moved to another wall panel, revealing weapons and equipment. Then let's start planning. We have a galaxy to save. Amy watched as the most feared hunters in the galaxy began working with the most wanted man in human space. She realized that she was witnessing the birth of something new, something that would change the balance of power throughout the galaxy. The hunt for justice was about to begin. As they worked through the night, planning their assault on Nexus Prime, Amy noticed something remarkable. The hunters moved differently now. Their posture was straighter, their movements more fluid. They were no longer reluctant servants forced to capture innocents. They were predators again, and they had found prey worthy of their skills. Director Malthan and his corrupt empire had no idea what was coming for them. The galaxy's most feared hunters had found a new pack leader, and together they would show the Preserve what it meant to be truly hunted. The tables had turned, and the hunt was about to begin in earnest. The first strike came 3 days later at a remote Preserve facility orbiting a dead moon. The place was called Research Station Beta, but Jack's intelligence showed it was really a sorting center where captured beings were processed before being sent to entertainment facilities. The Bloodfang approached the station broadcasting standard Preserve codes. To the station's sensors, it looked like a routine delivery run. Huntmaster Zarthok sat in the command chair, his fingers dancing over biocontrols that responded to his neural patterns. The ship itself seemed eager for the hunt, its living systems humming with anticipation. Station Beta, this is Huntmaster Zarthok requesting permission to dock, he said into the communications system. Acknowledged, Bloodfang. Proceed to Docking Bay 7. Prepare your cargo for immediate transfer. Jack crouched in the ship's cargo hold, wearing restraints that looked real but would release at his touch. Amy had stayed on Luna Station to coordinate intelligence gathering, but not before installing several pieces of human technology into the Bloodfang systems. The hunters had been amazed at how well human engineering worked with their bioship. Remember, Jack whispered to Vexstar, who was guarding him, we need to move fast once we're inside. The longer we take, the more likely someone will notice something wrong. Vexstar nodded. Over the past 3 days he had changed more than any of the other hunters. Working with Jack had awakened something in him that had been sleeping for years. He moved with confidence now, his head held high like a true predator instead of a reluctant servant. The docking process took 20 minutes. Jack felt the ship's living hull connect with the station's mechanical systems, creating a sealed pathway between the two vessels. Through the bioship sensory network, he could feel the station's life signs. 63 beings worked on the station, but only 12 were Preserve personnel. The rest were prisoners. Time to go. Zarthok said over the internal communication system. The hunters escorted Jack through the docking tube and into the station. The Preserve personnel who met them were typical for the organization. Well-dressed, arrogant, and completely unaware of what was about to happen to them. Another human? Said the station commander, a tall being with blue skin and too many teeth. We just processed 5 of them last week. The entertainment value is dropping. This one is special, Kasara replied, prodding Jack forward with what looked like a weapon but was actually a disguised scanner. Jack Morrison, the Preserve has wanted him for months. Morrison? The commander's eyes widened. The one who destroyed the Centauri operation? The same. Excellent. Director Malthan will want to see this one personally. We'll prepare him for immediate transport to Nexus Prime. There's no hurry, Zarthok said carefully. We need to refuel. And resupply first. The hunt was difficult, of course. Use Docking Bay 7 as long as you need. I'll have the paperwork prepared. As soon as the preserve personnel left, the hunters went to work. What happened next was a masterpiece of coordinated action that would be talked about in military academies for decades. Vexstar and two other hunters headed for the station's security center. They moved through the corridors like shadows, their natural stealth abilities allowing them to avoid detection by cameras and sensors. When they reached the security station, they found two guards playing a holographic game. The guards never knew what hit them. One moment they were arguing about the game, the next they were unconscious on the floor. Vexstar quickly accessed the security systems. Using techniques Jack had taught him to disable alarms and lock down communication systems. Meanwhile, Kessara and another hunter made their way to the prisoner holding areas. The cells were designed for different species, each one a small torture chamber disguised as a habitat. Some prisoners had been there for months, others for years. All of them looked up in surprise when their cell doors suddenly opened. We're here to free you, Kessara said in the common trade language. Follow us and stay quiet. Who are you? Asked a being that looked like a walking tree with far too many eyes. We're hunters, but today we hunt the right prey. Jack and Huntmaster Zarthok took care of the station's command center. The commander and his staff were so focused on processing Jack's capture that they never noticed the two figures entering their control room until it was too late. Nobody move, Jack said, holding a preserve energy weapon he had taken from one of the guards. This is a liberation, not a massacre. Cooperate and nobody gets hurt. The commander sputtered with rage. You can't do this. The preserve will hunt. You across the galaxy? The preserve is already hunting me, Jack replied. The difference is that now I'm hunting them back. While the hunters freed prisoners and secured the station, Jack accessed the command center's computers. What he found there made his blood run cold. The station wasn't just processing prisoners. It was experimenting on them. Medical records showed surgical procedures, psychological conditioning, and genetic modifications designed to make beings more entertaining for preserve audiences. Amy, are you getting this? Jack spoke into a hidden communicator. Amy's voice crackled back from Luna Station. I'm recording everything? This is worse than we thought, Jack. I know. How many other stations like this are there? According to the files you're sending me, at least 20, maybe more. Jack looked at the terrified preserve personnel. You're going to help us find them all. We'll never cooperate with terrorists, the commander said. We're not terrorists, we're hunters, and you're the prey now. The liberation of Research Station Beta took 4 hours. When it was finished, 61 prisoners had been freed, and the hunters had gathered enough evidence to expose a dozen other preserve facilities. More importantly, they had proven that Jack's plan could work. The next target was a transport ship carrying prisoners to entertainment facilities. The hunters intercepted it using fake distress signals, a technique Jack had learned during his military service. The ship's crew surrendered without a fight when they found themselves facing Kethver hunters who were no longer following preserve orders. Word of the attack spread quickly through the galaxy's underground networks. Amy coordinated with resistance groups on a dozen worlds, sharing intelligence and planning joint operations. Each success brought new allies to their cause. Engineer Pete Williams joined them after his home colony was threatened by preserve forces. He brought with him knowledge of starship systems and weapons technology that complemented the hunters' biological expertise. Communications specialist Kate Murphy came aboard when her sister was captured by preserve hunters and sold to an entertainment facility. The resistance grew with each victory. Former prisoners became scouts and intelligence gatherers. Families of captured beings provided funding and equipment. Even some preserve personnel began secretly feeding information to the resistance when they learned the truth about their organization. But the most remarkable change was in the hunters themselves. Freed from the need to capture innocents, they rediscovered what it meant to hunt with honor. Vexstar began leading rescue missions, using his tracking skills to find hidden prisoners. Kessara became the group's chief strategist, planning operations. With the precision of a master hunter, Huntmaster Zarthok underwent the greatest transformation of all. Working alongside Jack, he remembered what it felt like to hunt worthy prey. The two warriors developed a partnership that bridged species and cultures, each one learning from the other's strengths. "You fight like a Kethver," Zarthok told Jack. After a particularly successful raid. "You think like a human?" Jack replied. "Sometimes the best hunters are the ones who can adapt." As they prepared for the final assault on Nexus Prime, the hunters realized they had found something they thought was lost forever. They had found a pack worth belonging to, a cause worth dying for, and a leader who understood their true nature. The galaxy's most feared hunters had become its most dedicated protectors, and they were just getting started. Nexus Prime hung in space like a metal mountain, its surface bristling with weapons and sensors. The fortress station was 5 times larger than any human city, with docking bays that could hold entire fleets. Defensive platforms surrounded it. In precise formations, their guns tracking anything that moved within 1,000,000 kilometers, the Bloodfang approached slowly, broadcasting the correct identification codes. To the station's defenders, it looked like just another routine prisoner delivery. They had no way of knowing that the bioship's cargo holds were full of liberation fighters instead of captured beings. Jack stood in the Bloodfang's command center, watching the massive station grow larger on the viewing screens. He wore prisoner restraints that would release at his command, and his expression was calm despite the danger they were flying into. Beside him, Huntmaster Zarthok monitored the station's communications with predatory focus. "Bloodfang, you are cleared for Docking Bay 12, came the voice from Nexus Prime's control center. "Director Malthan is eager to meet your prisoner," acknowledged, Zarthok replied. "We'll need medical facilities. Morrison was injured during capture. Medical Bay 7 is prepared for human physiology." Jack smiled grimly. The medical bay would give them access to the station's internal systems, and it was only 3 levels away from where intelligence suggested the Kethver families were being held. The docking process took an hour. Nexus Prime was so large that it took time just to travel from the outer defensive perimeter to the docking bays. As they moved through the station's approach corridors, Jack could see other ships, luxury vessels belonging to wealthy clients, transport ships full of prisoners, and enforcement cruisers that kept order throughout the Preserve's empire. Amy's voice crackled through Jack's hidden communicator. "I'm tracking your position from Luna Station. The Resistance fleets are moving into position around the outer system. When you give the signal, they'll be ready." "Understood." "How are our other operations going?" "Pete and Kate just liberated another transport convoy. That's 8 ships in the past week. The Preserve is starting to panic." "Good. Panic makes people make mistakes." The Bloodfang settled into its docking bay with a soft thud. Jack felt the bioship systems connecting with the station's mechanical networks, allowing the hunters to access internal sensors and communication arrays. Through these connections, he could sense the massive station's heartbeat, millions of beings living and working in its corridors, many of them prisoners who had given up hope of ever seeing freedom again. The reception committee was larger than expected. Director Malthan himself waited in the docking bay, surrounded by guards and medical personnel. He was exactly as he had appeared in the recordings, pale, spider-like, with 8 glittering eyes that missed nothing. His expensive robes marked him as one of the galaxy's elite, someone who had never known want or fear. "Huntmaster Zarthok," Malthan said as the hunters escorted Jack from their ship. "I confess myself impressed. Jack Morrison has evaded capture for months. How did you manage it?" "We tracked him to Luna Station," Zarthok replied, staying carefully in character. "He was hiding among his own kind, thinking we would not find him there." "Excellent. And his condition?" "Stable, but he requires medical attention." "He fought harder than expected." Malthan moved closer to Jack, studying him like a collector examining a rare artifact. So this is the famous Jack Morrison, the man who thinks he can challenge the natural order of the galaxy. Jack looked up at the preserve director with no trace of fear in his eyes. The man who knows the difference between justice and profit. How refreshingly naive. You still believe in such primitive concepts as justice. The galaxy operates on simpler principles, power and the willingness to use it. You're right about one thing. The galaxy does operate on power, but you've forgotten something important. What's that? Jack smiled, and it was the smile of a predator who had been patiently waiting for the right moment to strike. Sometimes the prey fights back. The signal went out through the bioship's communication systems, reaching every resistance cell in the galaxy simultaneously. On dozens of worlds, liberation forces struck preserve facilities at the same moment. Transport ships were intercepted, prison stations were stormed, and evidence of the preserve's crimes was broadcast across every communication network in known space. But the real action was happening on Nexus Prime itself. The hunters moved with deadly precision through the station's corridors. Vextar led a team to the prisoner-holding areas, where they found not just the HFY families but hundreds of other beings from across the galaxy. Cassara and her hunters took control of the station's communication arrays, ensuring that news of the liberation reached every corner of the facility. Jack's restraints released with a soft click, and he pulled a concealed weapon from his clothing. The preserve guards in the medical bay found themselves facing a man who had fought in a dozen wars and survived everything the galaxy could throw at him. The battle for Nexus Prime lasted 6 hours. The station's defenders were well-trained and well-equipped, but they had never faced an enemy like this before. The hunters fought with the skill of apex predators, while the human resistance fighters brought tactics and technology that the preserve had never encountered. Director Malthan retreated to his private command center as the station fell around him. He activated every defensive system the preserve possessed, but it was too late. The liberation forces had already taken control of key systems, and more ships were arriving every hour as word of the uprising spread. When Huntmaster Zarthok finally cornered Malthan in his luxurious office, the director was no longer the confident predator who had ruled through fear and greed. He was just another being facing the consequences of his choices. "You cannot kill me," Malthan said, backing away from the advancing hunter. "I have diplomatic immunity. I have rights under galactic law." "You have the right to face judgment," Zarthok replied. "HFY judgment, what does that mean?" "It means you will be tried by those you have wronged. It means you will face the consequences of turning hunters into kidnappers and children into entertainment." The trial of Director Malthan became the most watched event in galactic history. Representatives from every species the preserve had wronged gave testimony about their suffering. The evidence Jack and his allies had gathered painted a picture of corruption and cruelty that shocked even hardened observers. When the verdict was announced, Malthan was sentenced to life imprisonment on a prison world where former preserve officials would spend their days helping to rebuild the lives they had destroyed. The liberation of Nexus Prime marked the end of the Galactic Preserve as a criminal organization. The evidence released during the uprising led to investigations across the galaxy, exposing corruption in governments and corporations that had supported the Preserve's activities. But for Jack Morrison and his allies, the end of the Preserve was just the beginning. Standing on the bridge of their new ship, a vessel built using both human technology and HFY bioengineering, Jack watched as former enemies worked together to heal the wounds left by decades of exploitation. Pete Williams and Kate Murphy had established communication networks that connected resistance groups across the galaxy. Amy Carter was coordinating relief efforts for liberated prisoners. The HFY hunters had found something more valuable than any quarry they had ever tracked. They had found purpose, honor, and a family that chose to stand together rather than being forced together by circumstance. "What do we hunt next?" Vextar asked, his young voice full of anticipation. Jack smiled as he looked out at the stars. "There are always predators out there, Vextar. Beings who think they can profit from the suffering of others. Tyrants who believe might makes right. Criminals who hide behind wealth and power. And we hunt them all, We hunt them all. But we do it the right way, with honor, with purpose, and with the knowledge that we're making the galaxy a better place for everyone. Huntmaster Zarthok moved to stand beside Jack at the viewport. You have given us back our honor, Jack Morrison. You have shown us what it means to be true hunters. You showed me what it means to have allies worth fighting beside. As their ship moved through space toward their next mission, Jack reflected on how much had changed since that first day when the hunters had come to Luna Station. The galaxy's most feared predators had become its most trusted protectors, and the hunt for justice would continue as long as there were those who needed protection. The pack was complete, and the hunt would never end.